I get the impression the king loves getting dressed up for these events. It's not only the breeches that he's wearing and can be seen in the photos, but the buckle shoes as well to go with it, which look fantastic. So obviously it's very antiquated, but that's the whole fun of it. You know, it's like the plumes and velvet of the garter robes. So, you know, I love to see it, but William is happy to wear the Windsor uniform with the red collar and cuffs, but obviously doesn't like to wear the old breeches. And it does put the palace in a slightly awkward position. So we've seen this on consecutive years. So when they've released the official photographs, there's one where William, his legs are hidden behind Queen Camilla. you can't see them at all. And then the other photograph, he's pictured from the waist up. So it's almost as if, you know, the king has said, well, I don't mind him, you know, not wearing the full uniform, but make sure you can't see him or something. So it's clearly a bit of a sensitive question at the palace.
Yeah, why don't they just come out and say, look, he's not going to wear it?
I don't know. I think it's only an issue because father wears them and not son.
Yeah.
In the same way that the king always wears a kilt, you know, when he's in Scotland, but we know that William's made a point of never wearing one. So it's obviously something they disagree on. You know, it's not a big deal, but the fact that these photographs are sort of cropped in the way they are turns it into a bit of an issue.
Rebecca, it does make you wonder if those kind of like really traditional historical outfits will just disappear when William is king.
I don't think they'll disappear, but I think we'll see these things tweaked in his own way, because it's something I think he's probably looking at as part of his general idea of modernising the monarchy a little bit.
Not being funny, why does he get to just out and out refuse when, yes, he would be the king, but it's like it's versus hundreds of years of tradition and history?
Well, I would argue that just because something's been going on for hundreds of years doesn't mean it shouldn't be able to develop over time. Because actually, until the whole Windsor uniform, for example, was created by George III, and until, you know, 100 or so years ago, I mean, the fripperies around it were huge, and then it was toned down to what we see today. So, you know, every few generations we do see these things tweaked. And again, you know, I would stress, William wearing trousers wasn't wrong. That is part of the Windsor uniform. We've seen Prince Philip in them over the years. We've seen his own father wearing them many times over the years. But obviously, the one time we have seen William in breeches at one of these events, which was at Buckingham Palace a few years ago, he did look a little bit uncomfortable with them. So.
Would you wear breeches, Richard?
Well, that's a tricky question, isn't it? I don't know.
All the better to see your socks.
Yeah, good point.
Do you have a finely turned calf, Richard, is what they say?
I don't know. I don't possess a pair of breeches, I must say, but perhaps...
Well, we know what to get him for Christmas then, don't we?
Perhaps if I was going to be king, I'd change my mind.
Yeah,
well, maybe
indeed.
actually if we agree to invite you on our Palace Confidential fashion special, we can do so, but only if you wear
with a nice
breeches.
pair of buckle shoes as well.
Fashion, well, it could be a revival, couldn't it?
This is a brilliant idea. Now, Rebecca, Queen Camilla was in attendance, and she wore the spectacular Greville Emerald Kokoshnik tiara. What a great name. This accessory, though, has a rather convoluted history, doesn't it?
Yes, because it didn't originally belong to the royal family. It belonged to a socialite and philanthropist called Dame Margaret Greville, I should say, and believe it was made for her by Boucheron in the 1920s. It's very Art Deco style. And she bequeathed it in the 40s to Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. And then it basically disappeared from view. It really wasn't seen. And I've heard various stories as to why this is. The one I believe most, I think, it was that actually it wasn't particularly comfortable to wear. And the Queen Mother and also the Queen Elizabeth preferred the slightly taller tiaras. They're both women of diminutive stature. So obviously having these kind of taller tiaras, you know, added to that sense of majesty. But then it suddenly appeared in 2018 when Princess Eugenie asked for permission to wear it to her wedding to Jack Brooksbank. And I think there was a bit of a revival of interest in it then. And spectacular.
Indeed, because, Richard, it was also reported that Meghan had demanded this emerald tiara for her wedding to Harry in 2018. So is there something going on there with Camilla choosing to wear
Oh
it?
gosh, yeah, this question of tiaras and Meghan, it's
man.
very
Yeah.
complicated. So the truth is it was one of 5 that was presented to Meghan when they gave her the choice, Queen Elizabeth gave her the choice of which tiara to wear at her wedding. That seems to be a fact. There's been various theories about it was then suggested she shouldn't wear it because of its Russian associations, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that story personally.
And there's been other theories that Princess Eugenie had already sort of bagged it for her own wedding, so Meghan couldn't choose it. I think the truth seems to be that it was one of 5 she was presented with, but she chose to have a different one for her own wedding. But the controversy came, and this is talked about in Prince Harry's own book, when it came to fittings for the tiara. And that was all about the couple felt that Queen Elizabeth's right-hand woman, Angela Kelly, was deliberately being difficult and this sort of thing.
AK-47.
Yeah, and wouldn't cooperate with them. So there was loads of sort of bad blood over that, and the look that Angela Kelly gave Harry and Meghan, Harry wasn't happy about.
I mean, Harry's very good at spotting some bad blood, isn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, personally, I think what a beautiful tiara.
And being presented with 5 to choose from. Nice.
Yeah, that's...
Life's tough sometimes,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Now, Rebecca, a lot of people would have loved to have seen our Princess Catherine sort of like, modelling a spectacular gown at this event, but sadly there was no sign of her. But you did see her the very next day at the Royal Variety performance.
Yes, I was freezing my backside off outside the Royal Variety performance at the Royal Albert Hall.
It's suddenly very cold in
Yes,
London.
it is. As you can see, poor Jo.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to miss it for the world, despite the weather, because it's the Hardy annual of the Royal Calendar. They last went, I think, in 2023, because the senior royals tend to take turns in going to it. And I think it's their 6th time that they've been, so, it's not an unfamiliar thing to them. But there's actually an important side to the Royal Variety performance, because it's a charity, a brilliant charity that helps people in the entertainment industry, because, we all think of well-paid movie stars, but actually there's a lot of very poorly paid people behind the scenes who do fall on hard times, because it's, a very variable industry. So it does a lot of good work for them, and the royals are patrons of this. But, as she came out of the car, I could hear all the photographers slightly sigh, because she was on the opposite side of the car to them. So the first person they saw got out was William, who looked very dapper in his black tie, but obviously all eyes were on her, because nobody rocks an evening gown like the Princess of Wales. And I don't think she disappointed, wearing this kind of bottle green velvet full-length dress with the Queen Elizabeth's long kind of chandelier diamond earrings and a beautiful diamond cuff. I was so close, you could see she actually had goosebumps on her, because she didn't have any kind of covering. But obviously she wants that striking moment with the photographers as she gets out the car. But she looked great.
Amazing.
And they also got to meet Paddington, so afterwards. So what better evening? In fact, she said to one of the girls who gave her a posy, that she said, "Oh, do you like Paddington?" And she kind of went like, "Shh, don't tell them, but my children love Paddington. They're going to be so jealous that we're here without him, but it's a school night, so they can't come."
Oh,
I thought it was a very moving moment when she met the singer Jessie J, who's
that was lovely,
been having her own, well, in her case, breast cancer battle. There seemed to be some very sort of poignant words exchanged between the two women.
Well, Jessie, she made a point actually of kind of saying, I just wanted to give her a hug, one woman to another, because it's a difficult, obviously, situation we're going through. It's difficult. It's a different kind of difficult, having to go through that in the public eye as well. But it was very, very instinctive, I thought. It was lovely.
well, there was actually another milestone for the princess, wasn't there, in her cancer journey, as she delivered her first public speech in 2 years. Of course, you were there to watch it. What did you think? Did she seem nervous? What did she have to say?
In fact, I would say she was far from nervous. And if she was, she hid those nerves very well. I would say it's one of her most assured speeches she's given. I think it's because it's something so important to her. It's all tied up with this big initiative she's going to be doing for the rest of her life, to highlight the importance of the early years, the ages from birth to 5, and how they shape the rest of our lives. And this was speaking to a pretty high-flying audience. There were 80 of, senior business individuals, everything from kind of Apple to I'm not sure if I can pronounce this right. Deloitte?
Deloitte.
That's it. You see, I'm a bear of very little brain, as one other famous bear said. So it was a high flying audience she was speaking to, and she was saying, look, we all understand you're here, to make money, but also we want to try and have some kindness in it and some understanding and sympathy and recognition of parents and what they're going through in their lives that they're trying to juggle, they're trying to do best for their children. And it was a pretty well-received speech, actually, I thought.
Brilliant. Well, it's also been a busy week for our King Charles, despite celebrating his 77th birthday. And in typical Charles fashion, he spent his birthday not in the comfort of his home, but on an engagement, and this time in Wales. Now, Richard, he never seems to take a break. What was he up to?
There's something, I think every year King Charles works on his birthday. And in this case, he seemed to want to sort of cram in as many events as possible. He was in South Wales. He's always loved Wales as the Prince of Wales for decades, carrying out various engagements. So the one that made me chuckle a bit, because he really seemed to particularly enjoy this, was driving a tram. I think the royals always love it when they can, drive a train or whatever.
I think we'd all love that.
And he was presented with a birthday cake, inevitably, which was a beautiful cake in the shape of a castle. And I tried to learn how to pronounce this name, but I was struggling. It's a Welsh castle.
Come on, impress us, Richard.
Cyfarthfa, I think.
There you go.
I'm sure I've said it wrong.
The Welsh will tell us in the comments.
But he and Queen Camilla seemed to have a thoroughly enjoyable day, and hopefully they were able to sort of celebrate in private with a nice dinner or something later in the day.
And Rebecca, the royal fans were also treated to a brand new portrait of the King. What did you think of it?
Yeah, so it was one of a set that the King posed for Country Life, taken by Millie Pilkington, who's obviously one of Prince and Princess of Wales's favourite family photographers. And it was at Sandringham. He was in his kind of country gear with his crook in his hand. And I think it just showed him in his happy place, looking really, really relaxed. It was just for use on kind of social media and in the papers the next day. But I thought he looked really well in it. And as Richard says, he deliberately works on his birthdays because that's the way he likes it.
We love it. We love to see it. Well, as William and Catherine were arriving on the red carpet at the Royal Variety performance last night, we got a glimpse of what Harry and Meghan have been up to. A trailer dropped for the latest series of With Love, Meghan, featuring them having a kiss. Oh. Richard, did that trailer whet your appetite for the whole series?
Oh my goodness! To be fair, I don't think it's a whole series, is it?
It's a one-off.
Yeah,
it's a one-off. Sorry.
Yes, good. You alarmed me there. I thought we have to sit through a whole new series. No, I think the point is, from everything we heard, there may not be another series, but it's really interesting. The two things that struck me was how prominent Harry was in this trailer. I mean, remember the first series I sat through where he didn't appear right until the end when he was a guest at a sort of garden party. But here he is, straight bang centre. The holiday special didn't seem very Christmassy at all, I have to say. I think it was... someone said it was filmed in May last year.
Oh, really? They kind of like block filmed everything, didn't they?
They filmed everything together, to save money and stuff. And it's, it seems to be her making Christmas decorations and all seems typically kind of phony and gushy. But
I see. Well, the reviews are in.
I said that's not going to be a 5-star review for Richard then, is it?
But Rebecca, we haven't, as Richard said, we haven't seen Harry feature much before. Does this feel like, we better wheel in the prince to keep the interest up? What's going on?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a natural conspiracy theorist normally, but 100% on this. I mean, the previous two series, have been critically mauled. I think the first series did better because there were quite a lot of what I would call rubberneckers, people and journalists having to watch it on repeat, But the second series really fell pretty flat, and I think she's trying to kind of bring out the big guns.
Or perhaps it's a sort of desperate plea, give us another season and you can see more of Prince Harry.
You can watch
more of the Harry
again.
and Meghan show. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure there was any mistletoe in sight, actually. Sound very prim and proper.
You don't need mistletoe to kiss your husband.
Not when you're in love. No, we're going to get onto that in a minute.
But whatever love means.
Yeah, no, we're going to get onto that. Now, Richard, you've written your Mail Plus column this week about Harry's latest money-making scheme. What have you been saying?
Harry, these days, like Meghan, will do anything for for a few quid.
Oh, surely
And
not.
this is Harry, who was always terrified of public speaking. You know, he genuinely was. It gave him panic attacks and all sorts. Well, he is going to be public speaking at an event for estate agents in Canada, or property professionals, I think they would say. So presumably getting paid a lot of money. We don't know how much.
As I've mentioned before on the show, one of my friends is a realtor in Canada. I wonder if he'll be going.
Oh, well, he may well be, yeah. This
Chad,
is in,
let me know. I know Chad watches.
This is in Ontario, and they're... I mean, it has made some of his old mates laugh quite a lot, I have to say, because, well, it's this idea that he's lending his expertise on, you know, the property market and stuff. I mean, obviously, this is a man who didn't buy his first property until he moved to Montecito and bought a £19 million mansion. So I can't wait to hear what he says. I suspect it will be more of a sort of general speech he's prepared about. Don't know, what do you think? Why it's great to be Prince Harry?
I was going to say, be born rich and you can buy whatever house you want.
I don't know what it's
think
going
they're
to be.
billing it as leadership and, you know.
Leadership.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. They mentioned leadership and what's the other word?
Philanthropy
This sort of thing. But anyway, it certainly has raised eyebrows back at the palace.
Well, we'll certainly look forward to that. And we'll put a link to that article from Richard in the description below. Right, sticking with Meghan for a moment, because she's on the cover of a magazine, Harper's Bazaar, and of course that means there's a cover interview to accompany. Let me read you a passage where she talks about Prince Harry. Speaking with her hand held to her heart when describing the prince, Meghan said, "He loves me so boldly, fully, and he also has a different perspective because he sees media that I wouldn't, as far as I can tell. He reads a lot of media. No one in the world loves me more than him. So I know he's always going to make sure that he has my back. You have someone who just has this childlike wonder and playfulness. I was so drawn to that, and he brought that out in me." Oh, Rebecca, has that made you fall in love with your husband all over again?
I actually couldn't look at you when you were reading that, Jo, because I didn't want a corpse. I mean, it makes me wonder if she put some of those notes in his lunchbox as she sends him off to work each day.
I thought you were going to say school then.
I don't know why they do things like this.
Well, if you don't know, because I was going to ask you, why? Is this to promote the Netflix special?
Well, that's what genuinely it has provoked amusement among, you know, sort of former colleagues, I think, as well as to why she's given this interview. What is it to promote? There's no mention in this feature of the holiday special of With Love Meghan. Yeah.
Look, I always try to think, I think our kind of British way of things is always to play things down. You know, someone says to me, "You look nice today," I'll need me to say, "Oh, this old thing."
Oh,
you
I know. She does
30 quid
do
off
that.
Mark's money.
Yeah.
You know, that's our reaction, and that, you know, maybe I can't look at these things in the same way when someone wants to kind of brag about themselves the whole time. I just find that very, very cringe. And I mean, I have to say, when you read this from top to bottom, it is unintentionally hilarious.
Well, this is probably my favourite bit. I want to read you another section. We're in a grand brownstone on the Upper East Side, that's obviously New York, that belongs to one of Meghan's friends. When I, the journalist, enter, the house manager announces Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, even though we appear to be the only two people in the house.
This is what I mean, Jo.
I mean, Richard, we discussed another royal recently who likes to be addressed by his title, didn't we?
So I'm not being funny, but I do think Meghan's sort of becoming the new Prince Andrew.
Oh dear.
I mean, no, in the
Don't
sense
say
that. No, it's just hilarious. So she's American, they're in America, but they're obsessed with titles. So, you know, we couldn't believe it when they insisted on their children being, you know, given the titles Prince and Princess.
But we don't know. I mean, are you saying that Meghan sort of instructed this house manager to say that? Is she
Okay, no. In this article, in this feature, like twice they mention her title of Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. No, so to explain, you know, as a social diarist, you know, I sometimes go to events like a diplomatic reception where when you enter, there'll be a figure there dressed very smartly and he will say, Mr. Richard Eden, whatever, as you walk in. But they don't announce the name of the host of the party, which is what's happened here. So, you know, there's only 3 of them in this house.
And it's not even a party.
And the sort of butler is announcing who she is. It's kind of absurd and weird. But it's obviously that she wants to make a point. And I have to say, I do think it's linked. I mean, what's happened recently? King Charles has stripped his brother, Prince Andrew, of his titles. He's plain now Mr. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And it's really upping the ante, I think, from Meghan's point of view, is showing how much they care about those titles, how much they want them to be used, even when they're in egalitarian America.
And a faint alarm bells ringing that those titles can be rescinded.
I mean, can you imagine how furious they would be if that happens? Because she obviously cares about them a lot. And that's evident from this feature.
I would say it's been noted on social media by commentators a lot that every time you see Meghan with a handbag or a folder, it will always have her cipher and her name on it, or initials, DOS or something like that. So it's obviously something that she really believes in pushing. And I just find that incredibly embarrassing, because the irony is you wouldn't really see a senior member of the royal family doing that. So, for example, I often travel on the official government plane if we go on these royal tours with them. And, you will see, the kind of, those carry cases that carry the suits on and things like that. And they might have a discreet cipher there. But when you see, because they need to make sure out of all the luggage, they get that stuff off first. But then you'll see the King's bag brought on. I'm telling you now, his briefcase is a battered old briefcase that somebody wouldn't even look at twice if it was in the left luggage department at Paddington Station. It's actually, I tend to think the more kind of, aristocratic you are, the more you play down those links and the more run down they are.
Well, you don't have anything to prove.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, spot on, Jo. So I mean, I find it laughable, this whole scenario with the kind of townhouse in New York, but not entirely surprising.
I mean, while Meghan was in Britain, she and Harry, they visited Sussex together, the county, once. But we know how important she thinks that title is because she corrected that guest on her own show.
Yeah.
I'm Meghan
Mindy
Sussex,
Carlin,
not Meghan
Yeah.
Markle.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, so I was just going to say, remember that, heaven forbid, if they were to divorce, as things stand, she would remain Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, in the same way it was Sarah, Duchess of York.
I just think you're being far too cynical now, Richard Eden.
No, but
I won't have it.
But my point is, that's a title that she would always keep. So she's making clear it's a big deal. Don't ever think of taking it away.
Well, she also talks about her children saying, I hope they see the value of being brave. They saw it when the jam was just a pot on the stove bubbling. Did you ever consider the bravery of jam, Rebecca English?
I haven't. And I'm not sure I will in the future, I'll be honest. I'm not sure it's convinced me. I've met a lot of brave people in my time covering this job, and they tend to be, medics, lifesavers, soldiers. I've never quite associated it with making jam.
To be fair, you'd have to be brave to eat any jam that I'd made, but that's another question.
Okay, well, we've got loads more to discuss today, including a certain Andrew, Mr. Windsor, and his daughters. Before that, though, we want to look at some of your comments. We celebrated King Charles's 77th birthday last week in true Palace Confidential style with one of our world-famous montages, and you all seem to love it, including Sammy, who wrote to us and said, the photo montage of His Majesty really got to me to the point of nearly being in tears. For all his missteps and faults, and despite the incredibly fortunate life he was born into, one that most of us will never relate to, he is still one of us, a fellow human who experiences the same emotions we all do. Love, loss, fear, joy, sadness, and regret, which you showed beautifully with your selection of photographs. And from the American grandchild of a proud Englishman, happy 77th birthday to His Majesty King Charles III. God save the King. Well, that's a lovely message. The montage also struck a chord with Harry and Sally Leventis, who said, I look forward to Palace Confidential every week. The three of you are the dream team. I would like to compliment the person who selects the wonderful music accompanying the montages. So carefully crafted. I'd like to give a big shout out to this person behind the scenes. Congratulations. Greetings from Queensland, Australia. We have a small but mighty team working behind the scenes to get Palace out to you all in YouTube. A shout out to Rami, Max, Dio, Charlotte and Emily, who put the montage together every week. Stay tuned to the end of this episode for another one. No pressure, guys, but I think everyone's going to be really excited to see how brilliant it is now. Now, we also asked for your opinion on whether Prince George should be attending more events. Before we reveal the results of the Palace Confidential poll, here is what Ty had to say. Should Prince George be in more events? My initial reaction is that I would welcome seeing him and his siblings participating in events that continue to be appropriate for his or their age, provided that these events do not take them away from school lessons, which are important. I have absolute trust that Catherine and William will establish the appropriate balances among school play and public appearances. But then Helen Leach popped up and she disagrees and says, no, leave Prince George alone. If he starts attending events, you vultures from media will look at every expression and say, he is fighting, he is bored, he doesn't like his father, etc., etc. He's only 12. Let him grow up in his own time. Well, there you go, that's you told vultures.
I was about to say, thank you.
We can reveal that 63% of you think that George should attend more events, with 42% of those people specifying that he only attends the really important ones. On the other hand, 37% of you said Prince George should not attend more events. Richard, I'm dying to know, what do you think?
Well, essentially, I think that George should go to events that he would find interesting. And we've seen that with the Festival of Remembrance last weekend and with the Veterans reception at Buckingham Palace before. You know, that his parents are obviously trying to encourage him to be interested. And I think the worst thing would be for him to be dragged along to events that he might be bored by. So there's no need to hurry him along. I mean, I remember Princess Diana did it too with her sons, didn't she? She tried to introduce them, tried to make them interested in what the future holds. And I think that's what they're trying to do, and I would say that they're getting the balance right.
Can you imagine the hell, Rebecca, of ever being dragged to an event that you don't really want to go to?
Yes, I remember as a child.
Relate to that, can you? Yeah.
You know, I'm surprised as many people say they want to see him more as they do.
I'm not surprised. He's cute.
Yeah. But simply because I do think, I agree with Richard, they're doing a really good job. I mean, one of my favourite engagements covering them with all three children was just after the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And I didn't know the kids were going. I was asked on a Sunday, morning to go and really early, and it had been a really busy week to go and cover an engagement with them visiting a scout hut. So I kind of went, and it wasn't until I got there that I realised the three children were
Oh yes, I remember.
Them.
Yeah.
And I shot some amazing video on my phone of them all kind of gambling around, getting involved in the painting. And I remember thinking, having a youngish child then myself, thinking, oh my God, the thought of my child in public with, a paint pot and a brush. I mean, that's a brave move as a parent, I tell you, because you never know where that paint's going to end up. And just seeing that family dynamic and how confident and happy and comfortable those kids were. Particularly with us around. I mean, there weren't a lot of us. They kept it quite a small group, but there was myself, photographer, camera crew, producer. And they happily ignored us and just got on with what they wanted to do. And I thought, actually, kudos to you. You are really doing a good job with those kids.
I would have been dreadful. I would have been like throwing the paint around, causing trouble.
Yeah, I can well imagine you would have been, Richard.
Well, as always, very interesting insights from our panel. Now, last week we also spoke in depth about Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, and we asked if they should be able to keep their titles. Well, Michael Hackett wrote, "Hello from Taiwan." Taiwan, wow. Love your show and excitedly await each episode. Thank you very much. I was just wondering if the king could give the princesses new titles to kind of give them a bit more space in name, at least, from their parents' reputations. That's an interesting thought, Rebecca. What do you think?
I suppose he could. It's in his power to do so, and he can do it pretty easily by kind of issuing letters patent, which is an expression of the monarch's wishes. But the whole process that we've seen in recent weeks has been designed to protect their use of the House of York, so they still are of the House of York. So I can't really see that happening, to be honest.
Okay, so I want to quote a line from a piece by Barbara Davies in the Mail on Sunday, which looked at both of their roles now and talks of suggestions that Beatrice is unofficially resuming her father's role as UK trade envoy, a position he ultimately exploited to enrich himself. Oh, Rebecca, should they really be doing anything like this at all right now?
Look, it's very tricky because they receive no public money and they are entitled to get jobs and go out and earn a living. And this is always a difficult balancing act with members of the royal family. And I think I spoke quite openly on the programme last week and said I thought it was incredibly disappointing and very foolish that Princess Beatrice was allowing herself to be billed out in the Middle East as, tea with, Princess Beatrice, HRH Princess Beatrice.
Didn't it say the Princess of York?
The Princess of York. Yeah, I thought that was quite a grave mistake on her behalf, and if she didn't know about it, she should have known about it, because that kind of thing shouldn't happen. I think they've got to be particularly careful now, given that everything that's happened in connection with their father's downfall, to make sure there is a clear delineation between who they are personally and who they are professionally. Because let's not forget, although the Epstein scandal is ultimately what brought Prince Andrew down, or sorry, I should say Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. We've all got out of the habit of that, haven't we? You know, I think the reason why it has been even more damaging for him is because so many questions have been raised about his behaviour in so many areas over the years, and his very questionable business links, and using his position as a, you know, official trade envoy for this country to, you know, feather his own nest has been a big part of that.
Yeah, well, I'll quote a royal insider from the piece who says no one knows what influence their father's contacts had in their formative years. For most of their gilded lives, he was their financial advisor. Richard, that sounds a bit worrying, doesn't it?
That's quite strong. I mean, I suppose there's some evidence for that in the sense that there was some question about money going into one of their accounts from some business arrangement or something. But I do think it's a bit far-fetched. I mean, both of them are happily married and established. In Beatrice's case, she's married to a successful businessman, Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, who he runs a successful firm. It's interior design, it does all sorts. So she doesn't need to be sort of clinging on to her parents at all. They're quite well established, and that's the same with Eugenie, with her husband, Jack Brooksbank. So, I don't think there's too much of an issue there.
Rebecca, Eugenie was caught up in more negative headlines, you know, a bit awful, a bit outside of her control though, wasn't it?
So the company for which she works, Hauser & Wirth, it's an arts dealership, have been charged with making works of art available to a banned individual underneath sanctions that exist in the UK over Ukraine as dealings with Russia. So, you know, she's not directly involved in any way, but obviously it just is an example of how that story might not have been reported terribly widely, because I'm sure there are quite a lot of other companies that have, you know, fallen foul over this over the last few years. But obviously it's particularly notable because of her involvement. It shows you just what a bit of a double-edged sword it can be.
Just a reminder, though, that Eugenie is a director of Hauser & Wirth, but she's not on the gallery's London board, and the gallery denies any wrongdoing. Well, it seems a good time to share another comment we got on last week's show. This was from Jane, who says, I wonder if you can please clarify. There's been lots of discussion about Queen Elizabeth's stipulation that you can't be half in, half out of the royal family's life of service, and about how Harry and Meghan wanted to take this route. Now, I agree with the Queen, but I'm confused. In what way is it different for Beatrice and Eugenie to combine their work as royal patrons with their work in business? Does it not look like they will be half in, half out? Interesting. Richard, how would you answer Jane?
Well, it's an interesting question, but I think there are key differences. In Harry and Meghan's case, they made clear they wanted to move to North America to seek their fortunes, and that wasn't acceptable. Queen Elizabeth took the view that you can't mix the two. In the case of Beatrice and Eugenie, they're two members of the royal family who are not working royals. They have their own jobs, and these are sort of regular jobs. They're not trying to win huge deals from corporations like Netflix or Spotify. So they've been allowed to go about their jobs. And in terms of when the questioner mentions royal roles, that's the kind of sort of charity patronages which they've been able to do. I mean, it's questionable how you define them. In a recent one for Beatrice, it was defined as deputy royal patron. But I think it's important actually in that case she was a deputy, and Prince Edward was the one who's the actual patron of Outward Bound. But I think it is an issue, and they need to be careful about it. But you know, as long as there's not too much conflict, then I don't think it's a problem. But it is something that they need to be very careful about.
Well, indeed. And to their mother now, Rebecca, Sarah Ferguson's had another blow with her latest book.
Yes, so she has brought out, actually, I checked this week, 50 books in her writing career, many of them children's book, and she had a new children's book coming out, which was the date of its publication was mysteriously pushed back to later November from October. And this coincided with the time that Andrew Loney's book came out for them, which was, one of the starts of the most recent set of troubles for her and Andrew. And I was told this week that that book has now been permanently shelved. It will be pulped. It will be sent to the recycling centre. There are 10,000 copies of the book sitting in a warehouse that there's nothing they can do with. A, because they don't think it's going to sell. It's going to be unsalvageable. In fact, I spoke to a bookshop owner who has had to refund tickets they'd sold to a kind of public meet and greet session with Sarah because they just couldn't go ahead with it. But also because, notably, her name and her title are still on the front cover of the book. It's by Sarah, Duchess of York, and according to my sources, that's repeated twice inside on the inside pages. And obviously this is a name that she now cannot use privately, let alone for
she
commercial.
doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah, exactly, for commercial reasons, because the dukedom has been taken away, and her spokesman at the time said, this is fine, it doesn't bother her. She uses the name Sarah Ferguson professionally, except clearly she doesn't, because it's there in black and white on the front cover of her book. So, but if she can't, it does raise interesting questions, I think, because there's been a lot of school of thought, especially in recent years, that she's been one of the main breadwinners for her and Andrew. She's the one out there kind of grafting on commercial deals. And if she's not able to, earn a buck now because she's considered persona non grata, what does this mean for them moving forward? Could we see another memoir in the offing? Who knows?
Well, is this why, Richard, there's talk of her possibly leaving the country?
Yes, this was speculation that she could move to Portugal, which would be an obvious port of call because her son-in-law, Jack Brooksbank, works for a property developer out there, Jack, and usually they split their time really between Portugal and London, so that's possible. I mean, there are plenty of other places. She always loved to go on holiday each year to Soto Grande in Spain, but I haven't heard that myself. I mean, she's always been someone who's travelled a lot, hasn't she? She spent a lot of time in the United States. But who knows? I guess it depends where the work is.
She's got a sister in Australia.
Exactly.
She likes Australia, and
yeah,
seems like some Australians like her. I mean, I wrote in a piece a few weeks ago as well that one of the things is mooted is for her to either move abroad or spend more time abroad, because it's been made very clear to us she will not move to Norfolk with her ex-husband.
It's very tough to be a redhead in that Australian sun. Very tough indeed.
The thing is, I think she loves her grandchildren so much. I don't think she'd want to spend too much time away from them.
I agree, yeah.
But what's this about her being quite literally in the doghouse?
So there was in part of this piece of the Mail on Sunday, it mentioned, I hadn't heard of this before, but I'm always happy to be corrected, that there is a bar, I think, at the back of Royal Lodge that's been nicknamed...
I've never been invited there.
And you're always invited to all the best parties. Maybe it's not one of the best parties, Richard, but it's nicknamed the Doghouse, and she's been spending a lot of time in there with the staff, drowning her sorrows, apparently.
I hope it's well stocked. What's this about Andrew being back in the saddle?
Yes, we saw photographs of him riding at Windsor Great Park again. And I mean, that's the thing about Windsor, because of all the public access, the photographers can take pictures. One of the huge advantages of him moving to Sandringham in Norfolk is it's a massive private estate. And so photographers won't be allowed in it. So enjoy those pictures of him on horseback while you can.
Oh, I will.
He tried for them not to be taken, though, because
I'm sure he did.
I spoke to someone who said he ducked down on the back seat of the car as he was driven out of Royal Lodge, and did the same on the way out, and obviously thought he hadn't been spotted at
Well, you can't really duck down on horseback, can you? That's the thing.
But, I wrote a piece a few weeks ago saying that, at the time, and this was before he was stripped of his title and kicked out of the house, that he'd been told in no uncertain terms to keep your head down, and that he literally did it this week, because they didn't think, during the height of all of the Epstein revelations, that, him trotting around on horseback seemed a very entitled image, and that the staff there at the Royal Mews at Windsor were told not to drive the horses up to him, because apparently when he doesn't want to be photographed, that's what happens. They put the king's horses in a horse box and drive it up to Royal Lodge so he can kind of trot around the estate there in private, and they were told not to do that. But clearly now the situation with the king has come to a conclusion. He feels that he can, go about his daily business again.
And it just gets worse, doesn't it? Because Richard, Andrew won't be pleased to hear that his beloved Falklands are now distancing themselves from him.
Yeah, this is in the Falkland Islands. You might remember that, Prince Andrew during the Falklands conflict was very brave. He flew decoy helicopter missions, and he was always welcome back to open new buildings. So there are quite a few plaques on walls in the islands commemorating those days. Well, now they want to take them down. They don't really want their building to be ruined by a plaque with his name. So it's all rather sad, really.
Oh, gosh. Well, we know from previous episodes that we have quite a few viewers in South America, but do we have any viewers in the Falklands? Now, I know it's a sort of like it's a tiny place. There's, I think, a small population, but we'd love to hear from you if you are watching. And let us know what you think about this the removal of plaques. But we're going to return to South America now, as that is where Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, has been the past few days. What's she been up to, Rebecca? Tell us everything.
I think I should actually put a trigger warning on this in case we use this picture, but anyone who has arachnophobia, a fear of spiders, I would suggest they just turn their head away from the screen now. So she's on a 9-day tour of South America, going everywhere from kind of Belize to, Peru, Guatemala. And she spent part of it in the jungle. And what I loved about these pictures, firstly, was that she was hot and sweaty and dirty. She was getting stuck in. She didn't really, and she knew a photographer was going to be there, but she was quite happy to be seen. But she came across, I think, what's called a Goliath bird-eating spider.
How big is it?
It was big. And it had really fat, hairy legs as well.
Oh.
It was big.
I like a spider.
You're from Australia, Joe. Yeah, I mean, that's probably like a kind of like a money spider to you. But it looked, coming from the UK where we have no, venomous animals, that looked pretty damn big to me. And actually, the picture is great. It was taken by Press Association, and she's literally kind of going like that, going, "I'll look at it, but don't put it too close." But then she did hold an anaconda.
Oh, no, see, that's where I draw the line.
You see, I'd hold the snake.
No.
I'd hold the snake.
No.
Snakes don't bother me at all.
Nope.
So, yeah, we hope that neither of us end up on I'm a Celebrity, shall we?
Yeah.
And then obviously kind of more suited and booted and more formal roles, because she's always there to highlight issues around the rights of women and young girls, and also she does a lot of work about, sight issues and preventable blindness. So, another really quite powerful tour for Sophie.
Indeed, and not that we're shallow on this programme, but she has also caught the eye with her fashion choices, particularly the dresses that she's been wearing. Here's a quick selection. This Erdem layered mini dress worn with Jimmy Choo pumps. Then there was this Max Mara Wales dress with the Moneypenny Sophie Hasberg clutch and heeled espadrilles by Penelope Chilvers. She kept things more casual with Lexi London's Deborah floaty dress and Tom shoes. And for this evening event, she wore the Sienna floral bouquet dress, also by Beulah London. And then she was back in Lexi London in this Nancy Bunting dress. And if you want to dress like our Duchess of Edinburgh, we'll put a link to those outfits in the description below. And you'll also find what we're wearing there too. Now, Rebecca, you had any favourites in that lot?
I just think she rocks every look. I mean,
she's good at it, isn't she?
She knows what suits her. She knows what works. I think she doesn't let the fashion wear her. She wears
100%.
She wears the fashion.
Yeah.
And she looks what she is. She is a professional working woman of a certain age with a good sense of style. I think she rarely puts a foot wrong.
And she was that Penelope Chilvers is one of my favourite shoe brands. It's a fantastic British brand. So
yeah, she also pushed the envelope a bit. I saw her the other day at an engagement. Wearing a kind of leather or pleather skirt, no, it actually was like a pinafore dress, I think it was. She's not afraid to push boundaries as well.
Absolutely.
I think she looks great.
Well, we can't let this moment about fashion go without speaking about Princess Anne's trip to Singapore. And more importantly, her safari-style trouser suit. Now, Rebecca, we know she's fond of holding on to an item or two in her wardrobe, but this was something even by her standards, wasn't it?
I think, as I wrote, I said she outdid herself this week. You know, she is the queen of royal recycling. Even though I hate that word when it comes to clothes, woman wears outfit more than one, shocker. But I think it's pretty impressive. 52 years after she first wore this kind of very distinctive 70s safari trouser suit. She wore it as a 22-year-old newly engaged woman to her first husband, Captain Mark Phillips, when they attended the Guards Polo at Windsor at Smith's Lawn. And she wore it again a couple of years later in 75 and then again in 2025. And I'm jealous beyond belief she can fit into something after 52 years. And what's so clever is that, you know, for someone who doesn't, you know, is quite open. She's got an interest in textiles and British manufacturing. She has strong professional links to the fashion industry. She's not obsessed with clothes. She's not obsessed with clothes. But very clever, she styled it up each time. So the first time she wore the whole suit with bare arms. The second time she had a shirt underneath it. And this time she had a shirt and had taken off the belt. So, you know, she styled it up each time. And I think, God bless her for that.
She made it her own. Do you think we should see a few more society types and other royals copy the safari suit, Richard?
You don't see many safari suits these days, do you? I do not possess one. And I didn't see them, you know, on the street in Kensington very often, do you?
Well, you are a man about town, Richard. You should start setting that style
now that Anne, the ultimate influencer, has worn hers again, I bet we see them
maybe
more.
Next summer I'll invest in one.
We're going to hold you to that, Richard.
Yes, well, we could keep talking about Anne all day, but we can't, because if you hear that, that means it's time to celebrate the unsung royal hero of the week. Now, Richard, we were just discussing one half of this royal duo. Now it's time to look at the other.
Yes, it's not just Sophie who's been, you know, carrying out challenging foreign engagements. Her husband, Prince Edward, Duke of Edinburgh, has been in Nigeria this week. Like, genuinely, it really does go under the radar. His trips don't tend to get reported much. You know, very dutiful, he goes out, does it anyway. But he's there, I mean, from what I've seen, the engagements are mainly related to the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme, which is fantastic, established by Prince Philip, and it's been continued by his son, the new Duke of Edinburgh. I did the Duke of Edinburgh's award myself when I was at school, and I can testify it's a really great scheme.
What medal did you get?
I actually only got to silver.
That's still pretty good, Richard.
Yeah, it was all right. Yeah, it involved some quite difficult hikes on Dartmoor and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, it's a great scheme, and he's clearly keen to get as many countries of the world, and particularly the Commonwealth, involved as possible.
Yes, and you're right, it has been a little bit under the radar, hasn't it? Because, Rebecca, when the producers were planning this show, they struggled to find many pictures of Edward in Africa. So do you think there could be more done by the palace to get the message of what he's doing out there?
It's a really interesting question. It's one that, quite frankly, just has to be balanced with cost. Because there are no journalists on this trip and aren't often, and we're not invited. But I don't want to place that on the palace, because I have to say, for us, from a cost perspective, you know, these trips that, you know, I come back and report on, but, you know, they are huge investments for our papers financially to do it. And hopefully, you know, our readers and viewers, you know, will appreciate that and enjoy it, but we cannot cover everything. And same for Buckingham Palace. You know, they have, people have these kind of ideas of palace where, you know, they're crammed with more staff than they know what to do with. But certain departments, you know, particularly I would argue the press offices, are quite lean operations. And for a member of the media to go, they would have to have a member of the press office to go. So that takes one entire person out of a small team out for, you know, 1-2 weeks. And again, they have to kind of justify it on a cost basis as well. So, yeah, and you have to kind of honestly work out how much coverage you would get. But also,
if you give us more pictures, you'll get more coverage.
We might have to ask Edward to take a few selfies, you know, while he's out there.
100%, yes.
It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. It is really difficult.
You might not want to, but I'm going to put it on the palace. We want more pictures and videos of the royals on their foreign trips. There you go. Yeah. Let's see if I have the power. Well, speaking of pictures, We have some more great ones coming up now. We mentioned the King's birthday earlier, but there was another member of the family recently celebrating his birthday, and that was Peter Phillips, son of Princess Anne and the late Queen's first, and if you believe some reports, favourite grandson. He turned 48, and we don't talk about him a lot on the show, but we thought we'd celebrate the occasion with one of our world famous